This case goes back generations. Every agent who's tried to solve it has crashed and burned. The case is actually a case, or a box. A box so valuable that wars have been fought over it. Countless people have been murdered to obtain it. Everywhere it goes, death and destruction follow. If you have the case, you must give it to the person you hate the most. Otherwise, the person you love the most will take possession. If you open it, you die. You have 3 days. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Comic Book Day. Happy Wednesday. Happy Inauguration Day. I know there's a lot going on in the world today, but thank you for joining us, Dark Horse Comics, as usual, here on Twitch to bring you not only what is new, but in this case, we are featuring what is coming soon. I'm very excited to announce, in case you missed it, that Lady Baltimore, The Witch Queens, which is a series that we had previously announced last year, but the pandemic happened. So there were some delays, but it's back on. It's now available for pre-order. And in celebration of that, I have some very special guests with me here today. Please join me in welcoming our Lady Baltimore creative team members, not the full team, but the best ones, because they're here on stream today. So first of all, welcome Christopher Golden. Hello, Christopher.
Hey, how you doing, Karen?
Good, pretty good. It is a busy day, like I said, so thank you for making some time to join us and chat about Lady Baltimore.
I wouldn't be anywhere else.
Do you mind telling folks just a little bit, what is your role on Lady Baltimore?
That's a good question. Well, first, I think we should swear everybody in.
Okay. That's fair, because you do have a long and bigger history with this.
We'll take all our oaths of office. No, I'm the co-creator of Lady Baltimore, but also all the characters in the Outerverse, Baltimore and Joe Golem, etc. And we'll talk about how Lady Baltimore got off the ground, I'm sure, in a minute. But I co-write with Mike Mignola, and I'm having a blast.
And that's a great point. Unfortunately, Mike is not here with us today, but as always, Mike Mignola is the co-creator looking down on us here on our stream, co-creator of Baltimore and Lady Baltimore. I'm also very excited to welcome Bridget Connell. Hello, Bridget.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank you so much for joining us and being on stream today. Bridget, can you tell folks what your role is on Lady Baltimore?
I'm the artist that does the interiors and gets to draw Sophia kicking butt. So
yeah. And I've only looked at the first issue so far, but you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Really good at drawing ladies kicking butt.
Yay.
And last but absolutely not least, welcome to my colleague at Dark Horse, editor Katie O'Brien. Hi, Katie. It's really good to see you, because we're no longer in the offices, as you may have guessed. We've been working from home since the pandemic started last year, and so I don't get to see Katie in person as much anymore. So it's nice to see your face. And Katie, do you mind telling folks kind of what you work on at Dark Horse?
I'm an editor. I work on Lady Baltimore as well as everything else that Mike and Chris have, like the Outerverse comics, including previously Baltimore and Joe Golem, as well as the rest of Mike's books, Hellboy, and everything related to that. You can see my background. Homeboy's hiding back there. Yeah, it's kind of a part just sending lots of emails to everyone like Bridget and Chris, checking in, making sure they have everything they need, making sure that we're on track with everything. And then, the really fun part, working with everyone on scripts and art and getting the comics made.
Katie is going to be a wealth of information today on all things Baltimore and Outerverse, etc. So thank you again for joining us. And I'm really excited to dive into this with you all. Just a few things for those watching at home before we take our deep dive into Lady Baltimore. So for folks in the chat, we do have a giveaway, as we usually do on these streams. All you need to do is enter a keyword, and you just need to type it into the chat once. It will be counted. You don't need to enter it more than once. Today's keyword is Sophia, and that's SOFIA. We'll tell you why that's our keyword in a moment here, but enter that and you will be entered to win the giveaway of one copy of the Baltimore Omnibus, which is a beautiful hardcover book collecting the first several volumes of the Baltimore series. And we're offering you that because Lady Baltimore is not out yet. It will begin in March. It will actually, issue one is on sale March 24th. So you can pre-order it now at your comic shop. But in order to get you caught up or to refresh you, if you're a longtime Baltimore fan, I figured the Baltimore Omnibus would be a good place to start. And as I said, they're beautiful hardcover collections. Katie, actually, so we have 2 volumes in that, volume 1 and volume 2. Do you mind giving folks just a super brief synopsis of what that first volume contains?
Baltimore is 8 hardcover volumes. So for the 2 omnibuses, a pretty easy split there. The first one is volumes 1 through 4, as well as a free comic book day story in it, which, for anyone who doesn't know, was a short that was written for a free comic book day special promotion issue that Dark Horse did. So you get all of that as well, plus all of the sketchbook sections of all of those hardcovers. And all of the cover art that was done, including any variants. So it's a really, really nice hardcover, heavy duty, very much like go back and look at it time and time again, go through all of the sketchbooks, all of the covers, pour over all of the art. It's a really nice kind of addition to have, especially if you're someone that likes to go back and reread things and go back and forth between the pages and the sketches to compare the process. It's really great for fans of the book, and for newcomers, it's sort of the first half of the story, so it really gets you deep into it.
100% agreed. And if you, like me, just really enjoy our big fancy hardcover books, period, there's that aspect as well. We actually showed off the 2 omnibus volumes in a previous stream last year that Chris joined us for, because Chris, of course, as I said, is the co-creator with Mike Mignola. So it's those 2 with art by Ben Stenbeck and Dave Stewart, of course, on colors for those books. So
right. And Peter Bergting.
And Peter Bergting, yes, thank you. Who we will also be talking about quite a bit today. We've got more of his art to showcase. So as I said, Lady Baltimore issue number 1 will be available March 24th at comic shops everywhere and digitally. You can pre-order it now from your comic shops. And something I like to remind folks or let you know if you are new to comics is that you can usually set up a subscription at comic shops, which will help you help make sure that you get every issue of a series when they come out each month. So you can check with your comic shop and see if they offer a subscription, a pull box, a pull list. Has a variety of names, but it's a good way to subscribe to an entire series. If you need help finding a comic shop near you, comicshoplocator.com is a really good tool, and it does work outside of North America as well if you are one of the folks watching us from around the world. We do encourage folks to shop locally if you can, especially during the pandemic, because we know it's a tough time for local businesses. So one thing I like to do is to ask our guests if you have any comic shops, anywhere in the world or local to you, whatever, but any comic shops that you know are open during the pandemic and are kind of going the extra mile. So I'll turn it over to Chris, Abigail, everybody, if you'd like to recommend any shops to folks.
I'll start. I mean, there are 3 that are top of mind for me always. The first is my local comic shop, which is the Comic Book Palace in Haverhill, Massachusetts. Comic Book Palace also has its own YouTube series, which apparently is quite popular. And the YouTube series shows them off as your truly typical comic book store. The second one is Jetpack Comics in Rochester, New Hampshire, run by my friend Ralph DiBernardo. It's an extraordinary shop. They do all kinds of business, and we've got an exclusive cover that Jetpack has done with Forbidden Planet in the UK. That Bridget has done the alternate variant cover for that cover. And then the other one that comes to mind for me is Million Year Picnic in Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts, because I think it's the oldest or second oldest indie comic shop in the country. And it's where I went when I was in college. That was like my comic shop then. And I still pop in there now and again. Great. It's the comic shop that I associate with the smell of a comic book store. You know, that like the smell of paper. When I think of that, I think of going down into Million Year Picnic. It's great. I
love that. And I do know exactly that smell. Bridget, what about you? Do you have any shops you'd like to recommend?
Yeah. My home shop is what I call it. I used to work at Heroes, Aren't Hard to Find in Charlotte. They're the ones that do the big Heroes Con every year, except for last year, unfortunately. But they're really cool people. They have signings a lot and stuff. And I think they might actually be shipping too. I'm not sure if they ship like nationally or like more locally, but I know that they've kind of made shipping rules because of the pandemic and stuff. But they're really cool people. I would definitely suggest stopping in there and picking something up if you live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
A lot of sites do, or a lot of shops rather, do have websites now too. I've seen a lot more stepping up their online ordering, which I know that's a big feat for those who weren't maybe prepared for it prior to the pandemic. So it's been really cool to see kind of how above and beyond a lot of shops are going. Katie, did you have any you wanted to call out as well? You don't have to.
Yeah, I'll say two. Well, first I'll say Things from Another World, Tifa. The Milwaukee store is right across the street from our offices. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of a home store for us in a lot of ways, even though we aren't there right now. But they also have a website. And also in Portland, Books with Pictures in Southeast. It's a wonderful store, only a couple of years old, but it's just such a fun shopping experience. And so I definitely want to keep supporting them however I can with the pandemic and everything. But yeah, Books with Pictures is great too.
I think we have called them out on almost every stream because of course Dark Horse is based in Portland, Oregon area, and so many of us have seen,
they're popular.
Yeah. So many of us have seen what they're doing, and I mean delivering all over the metro area by like in person. It's crazy. So kudos, props to all the comic book shops out there going above and beyond. So as I said, Lady Baltimore #1 is available for pre-order at comic shops like these, and comicshoplocator.com can help you find more in your area or ones that you can order from, like Tifa. And with that said, let us remember you can enter the giveaway. P.S. Keyword is Sophia, SOFIA. Enter that once and only once. We'll draw a winner near the end of the stream, so stay tuned. We'll announce that. And without further ado, let's dive in to Lady Baltimore and the expanding Outerverse. So first, I just want to make sure that I, check in with all of you. How are you doing during the pandemic? I assume we're all kind of working from home essentially. How has that affected your workflow? How are you doing during this pandemic? And we can start with Chris, since I don't want everybody to feel like y'all have to talk at once.
Well, yeah, I was. How am I doing? I'm doing okay. It's been. I don't want to belabor it. I mean, we're all dealing with it. I think we're all feeling a little bit lighter today, like we're on the road to some kind of eventual solution. I was looking at a list today of comic conventions that are still planned to be happening, some as early as this month, and I just am shaking my head like, I don't know how you'd be willing to be in a room with all of those people in the same place now. But you know, I've had many members of my family who've had COVID. Knock on wood, all of them have been okay, more or less okay. One of my closest friends, his wife is in the hospital right now with COVID. But you know, everybody has to just sort of keep it on. And but as far as working from home, you know, I'm behind, right, Katie?
Fine. Everyone's behind.
Yeah, but it's good. I'm fine.
Very good. Yeah. I didn't really think about that. Sorry for putting you on the spot with Katie.
No, that's okay. That's okay. My goal always is to make sure that no matter how far behind I fall, I'm never so far behind that the artists are waiting for me. So as long as the artist isn't waiting for pages to draw, I'm good.
I guess we'll hear about it now from Bridget.
We are good. We are good. So I normally have like cabin fever, like when it's not pandemic, just because, you know, the job consists of you working at a desk all day and, you don't really get to go out very much. But it's been hard trying to find, because normally I have like tricks, like we'll go out and go see a movie, or, you know, we'll go somewhere that I can't go now. So it's been, you know, challenging, just like everyone else's, you know, had challenges and stuff like that. It's I just can't wait for this to be over and like go back to normal life and see everyone and go to cons and stuff. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I know some people that have done like comic conventions, and I'm just like, there's no way I'm going to one right now.
No way.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think
I never thought I'd be sick of watching television. I'm just saying.
True.
That's why we're doing more things like this too, and why we've started and continued throughout the past 9 months or so. I guess it's been, what is time anymore?
10 months.
Why we've been doing more of these live streams for folks. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us for what would normally probably be kind of more of a convention panel, but hey, we're able to bring this to you wherever you are in the world, and it's nice to be able to get our guests together who are in usually very different places. So, yeah, Katie, I know this is probably, as Chris just mentioned, this has probably affected you've had to probably reschedule a lot of things. I guess I'll put it that way. How are you doing?
You know, I mean, like I'm personally doing all right. It's hard, like not being able to go to the movies, not being able to go out to eat. Like everyone hates it. You know, pretty much everyone hates it. Even the introverts, I think, are going nuts. But you know, but you got to do it. You know, and I think pretty much everyone that I know, it seems like everyone's doing their best to stay inside as much as possible. People are wearing their masks, trying to be responsible. It's just at that point where we're coming up on a year of this. And I think that that's sort of weighing on everyone a lot. 10 months seems stupid. It just seems like way too much time. But you know, we'll just keep doing it. There's a vaccine rolling out, so hopefully, I don't know when, but things will start to be more normal. Certainly, I'm missing going to conventions. There were always at least a handful a year that I would go to, and it's just, you know, you don't really get to see the writers and artists that you work with very much anyway, because of everyone pretty much working freelance. But it's nice that handful of times a year to be able to spend time with people, and it's nice to get to interact with readers and fans at the booth and just have signings and events. It horrifies me to think about now, shaking people's hands, standing in line that close with people. I don't know. I think whenever San Diego happens again, I think we'll all be wearing masks anyway. But you know, it's hopefully the end is in sight. So there's that. And as far as all the comics, everyone's definitely taken a productivity hit with everything going on. But I think that's understandable. We, you know, paused work on some books for a couple months last spring into the summer. And that was tough. And now we're all kind of moving again. Schedules have been pushed back a bit, which gives us a lot more time to work ahead on things. So that's a good thing. But, you know, it's just kind of affected the whole industry in all kinds of different ways. So as much as people did kind of fall behind everyone, myself included. We also have a lot more lead time on things now. And that's why this year we have so many books coming out. So many books coming out. So I hope people are looking forward to reading a lot, because we're sending a lot your way.
You know, it's funny. I'm what I call an extroverted introvert, right? And I talk a lot, and when I'm at a convention or whatever, I'm busy, you know, I'm chatty, I'm all of that. But then afterwards, I'm just like, I don't want people to get away from me. Like, I just want to go hide. And so when this first started, I was like totally fine with not feeling like I needed to go to this convention or that convention. And that lasted quite some time, but I finally reached the point where I'm like, oh, come on now. Like, I want to go to a good con, you know, so I'm looking forward to that time coming soon, I hope.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I feel like, as Katie kind of mentioned, I think things will change a little bit. I think we'll all be even more conscious of hand sanitizer and just germs in general. I mean, we already were, because we all know con crud is a thing, but yeah.
Even Mike, who I must say is probably notoriously not a lover of being surrounded by people. Let's say that is definitely like feeling shut in, feeling like he wants to be out at conventions and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, it'll be interesting when they do start opening back up again. We'll see. It'll probably be a mad rush on attendance for all of them. And one note before I keep on with my questions, for those watching at home and in our chat, please feel free to ask questions as we go along as well. If you have questions for the creative team about Lady Baltimore or about the expanding Outerverse. And with that said, now the moment that I know we have all been waiting for. Chris, would you please give us an overview of Lady Baltimore and how it fits in with the overall Baltimore series?
Well, Baltimore starts in World War I, and I won't go through the whole thing, but suffice to say, by the time, and spoilers, folks, it's important to know Baltimore does die at the end of the Baltimore comic series, but there's a lot more to it. It's certainly not an ordinary death, and so that spoilers shouldn't ruin your reading of it, because the story continues. He dies in 1925 at the exact same moment that a worldwide cataclysm takes place, caused by his death and the death of the Red King at the end of Baltimore. That cataclysm causes the flooding that floods New York City in 1925, 50 years before, well, 30 years before the beginning of the Joe Golem Occult Detective series that leads into Joe Golem and the Drowning City, which is 1975. And where we land with Lady Baltimore, there you go, that's the novel, and we also adapted it for comics. Lady Baltimore begins in 1938 as World War II is just getting off the ground. And you've got, what's happened is Sophia, who is now Lady Baltimore, and maybe people will be confused about that, but we can talk about how that happened and when that happened. But Sophia is Lady Baltimore, and she has no sort of special supernatural abilities. She's an ordinary person who has continued the fight that she started alongside Baltimore, and she now has sort of a group of her own of allies whom she leads in this sort of fight against the darkness, because although Baltimore defeated the Red King, which sort of turned down the temperature of the evil that was spreading across the world, it certainly didn't get rid of all the monsters that there were or all of the evil that there was, similar to the way that the end of World War I did not destroy the dreams of conquest of nationalists in Germany. And so as we begin, what's happened is that the growing Nazi party in Germany has allied itself with basically a now international group of dark witches called the Hexen Corps. And there's more to it, obviously. but that lays the groundwork, and you will see many familiar faces and many new faces in the pages of Lady Baltimore. And I couldn't be more thrilled that those faces are being drawn by Bridget.
That is an excellent segue into me calling out the rest of the creative team who are not, unfortunately, with us today. But in addition to Chris and Bridget, who are doing a phenomenal job with this, I also want to make sure we shout out cover artist Abigail Larson. If I accidentally said her name earlier, it's probably because I was staring at it on a page, so I apologize. But I've been a big fan of her art for a long time, so it was very exciting to see her joining this team. And honestly, just to have two amazing female artists join a Mignola creative team with a female central character. So that's awesome. Welcome, Bridget and Abigail.
And
Sorry,
a
what was
female
that?
colorist as well.
Yes, and Michelle
yes.
Madsen.
In fact, Mike and I are just, very much one of these things is not like the others. So that's okay.
Yeah, Michelle, she's colored some of our previous books too. So another excellent addition to this team. And then also, of course, we have Katie editing everything. So like I said, I was just really excited to hear about this. And I know, Chris, we had kind of touched on Lady Baltimore a little bit in the previous stream you did with us, but now we can finally dive into how excited we all are for this particular series.
And there's more to come.
Yes.
There's a lot of
yes.
a lot of feminine energy coming out of the Outerverse.
Yeah, and did you want to dive a little bit into the character first, since you mentioned Lady Baltimore?
Sophia?
Yeah, how she came to be Lady Baltimore.
So I'll talk about that, and then actually I'd love to get Bridget to talk a little bit about what she loves about Sophia. But Sophia started life in the pages of Baltimore as she was a woman living in Estonia who reluctantly married into a sort of abusive relationship. And, in that part of the world, in that era, certainly she had very few options. And her husband, short version, ended up dying. We'll keep it short. And coming back as an even worse figure in her life. And she fled him and was saved by allying herself with Baltimore and his band of merry men at the time. And Sophia proved herself not only to be an able fighter, but she proved herself to be probably the wisest and most loyal of his companions, and the one with whom he established a closeness that he didn't share with any of the others. That they felt like he was, I should say that I think Baltimore felt like she understood him in a way that none of the others did, and treated him like a human, even though by that point he really wasn't. So they established this closeness, and at a certain point he vanished from the world, sort of retreated, and he disappeared for a number of years. And during the time that he had disappeared, the only person who knew where he was Sophia. And during that time, they became close, not in any intimate way or not in any physical way, but in an intimate, personal way. And he knew his intention was to die. And he knew he wanted to die and hoped to. And he also had no heirs. So he actually married Sophia so that there would be a Baltimore, someone, because he felt like his estate and his family and all of that, he had that responsibility as well. So Sophia became Lady Baltimore, and when he died, she inherited his estate, and she carries on what she now sees as her crusade, not for him, but for the same reasons he did.
And so, Bridget, what do you like about drawing this character? What can you tell us about your experience so far with Lady Baltimore?
To kind of piggyback on what Chris was saying about Sophia, I like that. I mean, she's a kick butt type of character. She's very much a brawler, which I love. You don't get a lot of female characters that are, punching people like witches in the face and stuff like that. But I like her. You can kind of see like how everything was set up, and the fact that in the Baltimore books, she's this character that is rallying like her fellow like fighters next to her, and she's someone who joined Baltimore with nothing. Like she ran, like her husband was like cursed, and she ran from him and joined with absolutely nothing, like except for like the shirt or dress on her back or whatever. And you see what she can do without any resources, without any money. Like I think there's one scene in the original Baltimore, and Peter drew her like she didn't have a weapon, but she wanted to fight, so she picks up a shovel. It's just like beating people with a shovel. And now you have her with a ton of resources. Like Baltimore left her everything. So now instead of rallying her friends, she has her own group of really cool characters that she's leading, and then she has everything that's left behind, like with the estate. So you have her, like building parts onto the estate and stuff like that. It's really cool. She's a really cool character.
One of my favorite things that, watching and Bridget and I have been, and we should talk about this process a little bit too, but, Bridget and I have been sort of Skyping and chatting ever since she came onto the book. And I love that process. But what I've loved the most about seeing when I saw the initial pages was that, when Peter drew her, I could see the size differential between Sophia and the other characters, but it didn't really like sort of lock into my mind. And making her the center of the book and a heroic figure, the temptation, I think, for a lot of artists would have been to make her look physically more formidable, but she's not physically formidable. She's personally formidable. Mm-hmm. And that comes across every time Bridget draws her. And Bridget, there's the one scene where there's like a fight going on, and Rigo is about to be like, this is in like the first issue or the second issue, and Rigo is about to be like totally taken out. And Sophia comes from off panel and like tackles this witch with like full on tackle. And I was just like, so what's great about it is that like seeing the way Bridget draws Sophia informs the way I think about the character when I'm writing her going forward. And so that's been just a wonderful process. And I think I also want to give like Katie kudos for a lot of this too, because, prior to working with Katie on these books, I came at it from a more old school way in which a lot of most of the time, almost all the time, I had zero or very little contact with the artists who were drawing the books that I was writing. And we've done it completely differently now. I mean, Bridget and I talk regularly. I don't usually talk to Peter because he's in Sweden, but we message, on Messenger all the time. And it's made all the difference in the world, I think, to these books.
That is a really interesting point. Katie, has that been something that you actively changed about your process or encourage folks to do, or did that just kind of naturally happen here?
Well, it sort of is something that we don't do on every book, but with this book, it definitely made sense. And certain projects, especially when it's a new volume or a totally new series in this case, it's nice to really get everyone together at the beginning and sort of approach it. Comics are team projects, so really bringing everyone together to work as a team is great. Some books we don't work that way on just because it's kind of just the old school comics way, and it's fine. It's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with doing it that way. That's still the case on some of the books, but there are a lot of benefits to doing something like that, to bringing in everyone's opinions really early on, especially, like I said, when it was a newer book. Like with this, we had a lot of new characters that were coming in, and a lot of new monsters too, that I hope Bridget had some fun with. So it was good to get everyone in there. And then also with this, because it is part of the bigger Outerverse, we've also, worked together with Lady Baltimore and the Outerverse books. So we've had, Bridget and Peter both working on things too, because we need it all to fit together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice team that we have.
Yeah, the collaboration sounds fun to me. And that's maybe something that I get the sense from fans that, they don't necessarily realize how folks work on these and how far apart we really are physically, and that we don't usually get to see and interact directly with each other as much as you might think. We don't keep all these folks in our offices, believe it or not. Katie's not standing over Bridget being like, draw.
Although she might if Bridget
might.
on a deadline.
No, you guys are both good.
I can't say enough how much it really fuels my enthusiasm and my excitement. And every time Katie and I talk about upcoming storylines, every time Bridget and I, get on Skype and talk, and I'm always like, Bridget, I don't know if you remember, like initially you were like, can I bother you with this? And I'm like, you're not bothering me. Let's talk about monsters. What's wrong with that? And it's just been, especially because, and I will say this has been a frequent refrain for me. I throw myself on my sword completely for both Bridget and Peter. I'm like, later we will do things without so many characters on a single page and so much war, but it's World War II with monsters. And so like, I'm throwing stuff at Bridget and Peter Bergting that a lot of artists would want to murder you for. And both of them have risen to the occasion so much that I think, and I know Mike was saying this the other day too, that both of you guys are doing, I think, the best work I've ever seen from either one of you. Like every time it comes in, I'm just like, well, not only did they not murder me, but they killed this. I hate, it's so great.
That is a good quote. I think that made it into the sci-fi article. So
Yeah.
Oh.
True story. Well, I did want to ask too, do you all mind talking a little bit about how you came into this project, Bridget, and what that was like?
I think I was introduced to Mike around 9 or 10 years ago. I think it was after a Heroes convention, and he came up to me and was talking to me about this comic I had done right out of college. And I was like, why are you asking me questions about my book? Why? Because he was so interested, and he ended up buying my first little, crap comic out of college, and he's always just been somebody who's if you have any questions, he's been really cool. I got a super random call. I think I was I had finished a card game. I had done a Drinks and Daggers card game, and I had nothing coming in at all. And it was just a really random email I got from Katie at Dark Horse, and I thought I was like, all right, who's pretending to be Dark Horse Comics? And I was trying to figure out if it was just a fake account. And I'm like, oh my goodness, no, I think this is from Dark Horse. And I've never hyperventilated before, but I did that day. And I called my husband screaming. But yeah, it was a pretty random, at least for me, it was just out of the blue, but I have never had a project that I'm happier to work on, honestly. I'm a huge fan of Mignola, and I'm a fan of Baltimore, and I have read the Joe Golem novel, but I've read all the books now, Joe Golem, and just couldn't be happier to be on this project with these really cool people now, turns out. So
may it be the first of many.
Yeah,
let's hope. Buy 12 copies, everyone.
Right. Place those pre-orders now. Well, we already talked a little bit about process, and just along those same lines, how much do you all hear from Mike on this? How much feedback does he give, or does he kind of go through you, Katie, or do you mind talking about what his involvement is?
Well, as far as the script and outline involvement, Chris would be able to talk more about that aspect because I believe they talk about it before the scripts come to me. As far as art, whenever we get art in from Bridget, send it to both of them and we all compile all of our notes. Mike always writes back super positive feedback because he really does love everything that's coming in. So he's involved with it, and he's also just kind of like a really big fan of it too. Whenever anything comes in, he always just loves it. He was a little more involved earlier on with some of the monster designs that haven't been revealed yet, so I won't say what they are. But some of the earlier monster designs, I think Bridget, you and Mike went back and forth on some of the designs for, which is always cool to see, and which will always come up in the collection sketchbooks. So pre-order that too. But yeah, the collaborative aspect is cool.
We have a few sketches in the materials we're able to show you now, which are kind of cycling through as we chat today. And I know like you were able to talk about it a little bit in some of those previous press pieces, right, Bridget?
Yeah.
Kind of developing monsters. It's almost like Mike likes monsters or something.
Something like that.
New. I'm excited to see some of the new monsters in this. I try not to read ahead too much. It helps me not give away spoilers too, for one thing. But even just from the little bit that I've looked at and read in this first issue, it's already really fun. Yeah, see, look at these sketches. I want to know more about these. All right.
Chime in.
These were cool. It was just me compiling. I think I mentioned in some release that it was like, it was a really cool concept of a harpy. It was like a almost crustacean harpy, and putting all the pieces together, and like Mike came up with like the hard shell back and then the really soft front, which was really cool. So I think I have like a bunch of different animals I used as reference to like kind of combine. Like she's got like kind of a stingray tail going on and like a horseshoe crab like element to her spine. So
one of the interesting things with Mike is that he always says now, and I always say things that I probably shouldn't say, but he'll he can yell at me later, but he always talks about how he can't draw women. He says, I can't draw women. And what's great about that is that means that he's never going to tell Bridget to draw Lady Baltimore differently. He's not going to say Sophia, but when it comes to the monsters, he is going to, give his 2 cents. But I have to say, having been working with him, and Katie, you can attest to this, I've been working with him for a really long time. And I don't think I've ever seen him as content on an ongoing basis with the various art teams on various books as he seems to be right now. And that just is great. I mean, he's just, he'll have a note here, a note there, but they're always super specific, like if it were a writer, he'd be sort of giving you like punctuation and grammar notes. And that's great. I mean, I think it speaks really well for all of the art. And as far as the scripting goes, it's mostly story stuff now. It's this sort of macro, because this thing started as just one phone call a million years ago, and the growth of it has been so organic over time. When we were getting into the home stretch of Baltimore, I think I said to him sort of offhand at one point, we could do XYZ and call it Lady Baltimore. And he was like, nah, like this is not, and then I sort of forgot about it. And probably 6 months later, I think I mentioned it to him again, or for a reason. I don't remember what it was, but it came up again. And he was like, yeah, we should do that. And it just grew organically. It just made sense. And that's how everything that's happened in the Outerverse has happened, because organically we recognized something we had already been doing in the story without necessarily realizing we were doing it, and said, that's a story. That's a character we want to see more of. we laid the groundwork for this mythology without even realizing we were doing it. And now, wow, look at this. And that's been the real pleasure of it, is the sort of world building, both the accidental and purposeful world building. So
worked out nicely. That actually is another good lead into another question I wanted to ask you all. I like to hear about what some of your favorite things are so far that you can talk about anyway, either to write, lines of dialogue, scenes, a panel, a page, anything. And also for you, Bridget, maybe to draw. What are some of your favorites?
Start with Bridget.
Okay. Definitely the monsters have been a lot of fun. I'd say for characters, there's a new character, Imogen, who is dope. She's been really cool to draw. I also got really excited when I found out Rigo was in the story, because Wolf and the Apostle is probably one of my favorite Baltimore books. But yeah, the locations have been really interesting. There's one, I don't know if I want to say the name of it, but it's very fairy tale town-esque. So yeah, it's been all been pretty cool. Been a learning experience too, and just doing the wartime stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of research.
Yeah.
Well, that's the best, is it really is the deep end, because these scripts, I try to include as many links to images in the script as I can. If I have a specific thing in my head, it always comes with an image link.
Yeah.
But it really is sort of the deep end, Peter Bergting hates drawing windows. If he's drawing what he wants to draw, it almost always takes place in a forest, and the first issue of Tales of the Outerverse, Kojikaru the Skinner #1, is literally nothing but city. And I've done that to him, numerous times. And, with Bridget, we had never worked together before. And the first issue of Lady Baltimore calls for a lot of architecture, specific stuff, and a lot of monsters and stuff that is hard to visualize necessarily. It's yes, Bridget, draw this monster that basically is made of giant eyeballs and and all that stuff, and make it not look foolish. And that's been great. And I would say too, I'm glad that the images that were revealed included the moment where the witch is coming out the side of the door, sort of emerging, because I think it looks amazing. It's so creepy, and it's everything I could have wanted. And that scene also sets up both Sophia and Imogen. And that's another thing that sort of happens organically, is there's a romance happening in this story, and I love every second of it. So that's, I don't know, it's just super cool. And that's, Imogen got a one-shot because we loved her so much, and I feel like for me, she's the breakout character as a new character, so. But I also know that Bridget loves Einar too.
Yeah, Einar's a good one. He's crazy. Can I say one more thing? I love all the witches and stuff, because now they have there's specific covens, and there's different types of witches, so they all have kind of each coven has kind of a different look.
But that's all you too. Take credit, Bridget.
Well, we did it together. You let me do it.
No, take credit. Because again, I'm so focused on the overall mythology and the overall story structure and all of that. And Bridget was trying to figure out what to draw, how to draw certain witches.
There's a lot of witches.
Yeah, there are a lot of witches. There are a lot of witches. And I was sort of working on my hierarchy of witches and how witchcraft works in this universe and all of that. And Bridget came in with, something she had just been toying with, hey, here are designs for 7 or 8 or 9 different sort of clans or styles, if you will, of the sort of dark witches, the coveners we call them, witches that gather in covens, who are the evil witches that belong to the Hexen Corps and all this stuff. And so here are sort of 9 styles of coveners, that basically different schools of witchcraft. And here's how they look when they're young, and as they get older, they evolve to be more hideous. And here's how they look then. And so that's the credit for the designs of those and the idea behind it. Yes, I took it and I added more sort of structure to those ideas, but those ideas are Bridget's ideas, and they're great, and the designs are great, and I love it. So take credit, Bridget. You deserve it.
We did it together.
I love all those names too, like Coveners. Come on, that's great. Oh, I have a cat visitor. Come here.
There are the Coveners and the Weirders. It's a whole different thing, but.
So this is a great time for us to start talking about the expanding Outerverse as well. I just have to say, I'm a big Dune fan also. And when I first read the title Imogen in the Weirding Way, I was like, wait, what? And then I realized, okay. But I had a moment. Different weirding. So yeah, Chris, and we're actually getting some questions from chat about this too. Let us now expand a little bit and talk about the expanding Outerverse and how it connects to this, if you would.
Yeah. So basically, we're gonna probably reveal more than any of the stuff that's been. Katie, yell at me if you like. You can't kick me under the table from 3,000 miles away, but So, basically the idea was that we wanted to do Lady Baltimore, and Lady Baltimore is a big story. I mean, for a 5-issue story, what happens in those 5 issues is just jam-packed war, action, mythology, and sort of just the whole mythos behind the Outerverse is established. And I'd be happy to sort of explain it in succinct ways of like what the Outerverse is. But while we were doing that, I knew while I was sort of coming up with the ideas behind this and talking to Mike about the whole thing, that we were going to bring in the Golem. We were going to bring in, we had Imogen as a new character. We were going to bring in Kojikaru, whom we laid the groundwork for in Joe Golem purposely to lead to this future. And what that means, and how Krina Kojikaru and the Golem and Baltimore are related, and what that means in the course of this universe. But it was so big conceptually that I knew that we weren't going to get space to really play with some of those characters. And I'd been talking with Peter about what we were going to do next. And so Katie and I talked, and I said, look, what we really want to do, is Mike and I want to get a mini series or a series of little one-offs and things like that to focus on these characters, to expand the world so people really understand how big what we're creating is. And that's where Tales from the Outerverse came about. And then it was only a matter of who we focused on. And because the thing is, there are so many characters that could sustain a one-shot, a 2-issue miniseries, a longer miniseries, that, yeah, there they all are, that, like, for instance, we'll talk a little bit about Josephine, who we'll get to her in a second, but like Josephine has very little screen time. She's not in the Tales of the Outerverse. Well, she might be in the Imogen one-shot briefly, but she's in Lady Baltimore, but she doesn't get a lot of spotlight. But Bridget particularly loves her, and so Bridget was like, "What about this with Josephine?" And I was like, "You know what? Awesome, let's do that." And there's a character called Rutger who's not seen in that triptych, who we share a love. If you could see above my desk, you would see a Blade Runner poster, and you see behind Bridget's desk is a Ladyhawke poster. We share a love for Rutger Hauer. So we named this character after Rutger Hauer, and so there are all of these characters that we want to work with, then it was just great putting Peter and Bridget together to talk about, how would a certain character look like. Peter had drawn a character first, or Bridget had drawn a character first, and how we were going to get that together. But so the Outerverse grew out of all of that, and if you want to, we can go through the triptych. I know you wanted to do that.
Tell us more about this triptych. First of all, who is it by, and how we're going to see it as covers? Yes.
So I'd been talking to Peter about doing a connecting cover for the first issues of Kojikaru the Skinner, which is the left side of the triptych, for the one shot of Imogen of the Weirding Way, which is the right side of the triptych, and for the first issue of the 2-issue, The Golem Walks Among Us. And every time Katie and I talk about it, I remind her that it's got an exclamation point. And that's the middle part of the triptych. And that's how it came about. And it was just to sort of show the breadth of the Outerverse, not necessarily this story, although many of these characters are in this story, but these characters represent the past and the future of our timeline, and also a lot of what's happening in our current story.
And I know we don't want to spoil anything, so we can't identify every single character in this.
Sure, we can.
Can we? I mean, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. That's up to Katie. I don't.
I think we can. I think, Chris, if you want to go through left to right, I don't think there's anyone.
Yeah, we can go through it really quickly, and then and then if Bridget wants to talk a little bit about a couple of the characters in particular, she can. I think so. From left to right, it's Lord Baltimore. It's Molly McHugh from the Joe Golem Cult Detective series. It's Krina Kojikaru, also known as Kojikaru the Skinner. It's Judge Rigo, the man we love to hate. The Bat is Haggis from the Baltimore series. Then we have Harish, who unfortunately we lost in the pages of Baltimore, but you never know. Then we have Josephine, and somebody had asked about her glove there. She has 2 of them. Those are things that Bridget wanted to give her, and I was 100% in favor, and it comes into play in Lady Baltimore. We won't say any more. Then, of course, the Golem himself. And then we have the Red Witch, or the Blood Red Witch, I should say. And then we have Joe Golem himself. So the Golem and Joe Golem are not 2 separate characters, but we showed both of his forms, I guess you'd say. Then we have the Red King in the body of Thomas Childress. And then we have Sophia Baltimore there. And again, she's a tiny little creature. And that's one of the things I love. And then Imogen is there next to her. And behind Imogen is Judge Duvik, who is a former, essentially priest and crusader and torturer of the New Inquisition, who became a werewolf. And finally, we have Einar the Warlock, warlock having more than one meaning, which we won't get into right now. And Einar is a character who was in the original pitch, and he's sort of a mysterious guy. And Bridget and I both love him. And when Bridget first drew him, I was like, oh, okay. That's not how I pictured him. And as soon as she drew him, I was like, yep, got it. It's he's basically Kurt Russell in Christmas Chronicles, except with red hair.
He does look like him.
I love the Lady Hawk poster and reference also. Just shout out for that.
Thanks. Yeah, one thing I will say about Josephine that I like is whenever I draw her, I picture her as like a World War II punching paladin. That's how I imagine her. She's a really cool character.
I just became an Imogen fan as well. Just right there. That did it. So we have showcased that triptych art online. You'll be seeing more of it. Stay tuned to Dark Horse social media, and then everybody here, actually. I think everybody here is active on Twitter, yeah, and Instagram a little bit.
Yeah. I'm hardly ever on. I hardly ever post, but I'm on Instagram, yeah.
Well, everybody has a pretty straightforward screen name, actually, which I always appreciate. Easier to find you all that way. We are at Dark Horse Comics, of course, on all the main channels. So stay tuned. We'll keep sharing news as we have it and as we can give some out. We're today here on the stream, we're actually showcasing most of the art that we have that we can reveal to you so far, because as we said earlier, and for those who are maybe just tuning in more recently, Lady Baltimore issue #1 is not out yet. It is coming out in March 24th, so you can pre-order it now. We have been able to share some preview pages, so you kind of tease the beginning of the story with those first few pages and panels, and then this Outerverse, the 3 one-shots and this triptych, which makes up the covers. That's the other aspect that we've been able to show off so far. If there are any other additional questions from the chat, please feel free to drop those now, and I'll see what we can work in for the team without any spoilers. There are some things you're going to have to read and find out about. I have seen some of those comments scrolling by, so we're not ignoring you, but you do. You've got to read and find out, as Brandon Sanderson likes to say. Also, you're seeing some of the process art from Abigail Larson, the cover artist. I just want to make sure we shout that out. Yes, her beautiful art graces the covers. And then Bridget also has done that variant cover, which we have now been able to show off as well. But yeah, thank you again to Abigail for sending over some of the process art so we can show you some of those main series covers. Is there anything else that you all can talk about without spoilers? Anything you're working on now that you'd like to call out, or any future events or anything like this maybe that you're doing, either for Lady Baltimore or the Outerverse, or just otherwise things you would like to talk up before we end things today?
I mean, I probably should mention that I have a new novel out.
Hey.
I have a new novel that came out last month called Red Hands. And that's out now. And other than that, there are a couple of other Dark Horse and Mignola related things coming up that I cannot talk about.
Unannounced things.
Particularly with my editor on the Zoom.
Well, we will announce as soon as, typically, for those who didn't know, basically we announce things when they become available for pre-order. So you're not left hanging, and we don't just completely tease you, you know. So that's the why on some of the timing. So yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned for more. But the things we've talked about today are available for pre-order now, or should shortly be. So you can find out more at darkhorse.com, of course, about all of these things. Well, without spoilers again, I don't want to ruin anything we have coming up. But Lady Baltimore, as I said, issue #1 available for pre-order now, and these other Outerverse titles have also been mentioned on our website. So check out darkhorse.com for more details on that. I like to end with just a fun question for you all too. We already talked a bit about working from home during the pandemic and all of that. So how are you staying entertained? How are you staying sane? What are some of the other comics, books, movies, things that you've been doing lately? If you don't mind talking about some things that you enjoy.
Katie?
I will start. I'll start. I haven't started down any of these. I've been, oh, and this is a whole new cat. Sorry.
Yeah, here's Rex.
Oh,
At the end.
I've been, watching a lot of stuff, watching a lot of TV and movies. It seems like there's, there's always so much. You can't really ever run out of Netflix or Hulu or any of them. But I've been having a nice time going through and binging some series. You know how you add things on your Netflix list and then someone's like, oh, have you seen this? And you're like, it's on the list. And the list is a place where maybe you'll watch it or maybe you'll die having never watched it. And we all just know this. But I've cleared through a couple things recently. The most recent thing that I finished that was like a series was The Queen's Gambit, which I did like. A lot of people highly recommended that. And I think next I'm looking forward to the Night Stalker series that they just dropped. So, yeah.
Rex approves.
should I go? So me and my husband have been watching, we've seen Star Trek Next Generation. Like I've seen like a bunch of episodes, but we're watching it like from beginning to end, which is really fun. I was reading If It Bleeds, and then I got to the second Stephen King's If It Bleeds, and I got to the second story, and it freaked me out a little too bad, so I had to put that down. And I'm reading the Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones right now. So I like put down one horror book because it was too scary, and I started another one. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, it's so good.
Cool.
I watch way too much TV, and partly because I watch in shifts. You know, my wife is a school teacher, so she has to get up super early. So my wife and my daughter Lily, who's 18, we watch something sort of before they go up. And then after they go up, my son Dan, who's 25, he's a teacher. He just got his master's, so he lives at home currently during the pandemic. And so he likes the worst horror movies of all time, like just if the you know, like certain things in particular. But so it's a very strange thing. So with my daughter, I am currently rewatching all of Gilmore Girls. Huge fans. We're also waiting for Grey's Anatomy to come back. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan. So total nerds in that regard. And then also, as far as like all the streaming services, Queen's Gambit was great. My son Dan and I love a show that doesn't get enough love, which is Kim's Convenience. If you've already watched all of Schitt's Creek and you want something else that'll warm your heart and make you laugh, Kim's Convenience is absolutely wonderful. And we just watched Lupin, which is a French heist mystery thriller series, which we love. So yeah, a lot of stuff. But myself, I love old movies. I'm the only one in the house who likes like old movies from Golden Age of Hollywood. So that's sort of how I've been healing myself during the last year or so, dealing with all this, is watching old movies. Comic wise, I just read the first issue of Terry Moore's Serial, which was amazing. Terry is, Terry and Mike are sort of side by side as my favorite comic book creators of all time. And book-wise, there's a novel by S.A. Cosby called Blacktop Wasteland, which is a great crime novel. I recommend it to everybody. And then another crime novel, which I just finished. I'm going to show it off. And Now She's Gone by Rachel Housel Hall. Terrific. I read a lot.
It's good.
So, yeah.
I just
so that's why I'm behind on my deadlines, Katie.
You gotta take life breaks. You need to have some work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it's hard when we're all kind of confined to home, I think. I find it hard. So
Yep.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
it's good to take breaks. And it's a reason why I like to ask for your likes and your recommendations for
Turner Classic
all.
Movies will heal what ails you.
And now I need to go rewatch Lady Hawk, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yes. I watch it like at least once a year.
I actually was just thinking about it because I was going to watch Stardust again. I love Neil Gaiman and, of course, Michelle Pfeiffer. And yeah, so Lady Hawk time. Inadvertent shout outs for Lady Hawk today. I don't know. There you go, folks. Well, thank you, everybody, again, for coming on and to, just chat all things Lady Baltimore. And we're really excited to have it back on the schedule so you can see more about it and pre-order it at your comic shops now. Comicshoplocator.com can help you find some more shops if you need it. And all the other Outerverse expansions. A lot of fun things coming for fans of Joe Golem in particular. I know we have a lot of those on social media and in the chat today, and just in general, I too am a big fan of Joe Golem. So excited to have some more good Golem content. So thank you to Chris and to Bridget and to Katie for joining me today to talk about all of these things.
Yay, it was fun.
And welcome aboard, Bridget. And I'm really excited to see this series all come to life with your.
I can't wait for everybody to see Bridget's full, complete first issue. So
I am really excited to see some Lady Baltimore kicking butt, honestly. So thank you all again. I will not keep you too much longer, but check out darkhorse.com for more details on Lady Baltimore. And with that, we will sign off for the day. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
Weren't you going to give something away?
Oh, Lord. You know what? Just as you said that, I remembered. I apologize. Like this has been a long month already, you guys. 2021 has been a long year. Without further ado, let me tab back over to my giveaway appropriate window here. And so appropriately enough, the winner of our giveaway is named My Mind is Going. So congratulations to My Mind is Going. You won a copy of the Baltimore Omnibus Volume 1. That is our giveaway prize for today. So all you need to do to claim is you can use the claim command. That's just !claim in the chat, or you can just send us a private message here on Twitch, and we will get in touch and arrange shipping for you. And that's Baltimore Omnibus will kind of give you the intro to the overall Baltimore series. And whether or not you're a new fan, you might be an existing fan. It'll maybe be a refresher before we dive into Lady Baltimore. So thank you for reminding me before I moved on past that. So congrats to our winner, and thank you again to everybody for joining me today to talk about Lady Baltimore and the Outerverse. And now we can sign off. Rex is here too to say goodbye. Farewell.
Bye, Rex.